The courtroom was quiet, too quiet. Not in the way justice demands silence, but in the way a coffin does. Marcus Thorne, once one of the sharpest legal minds to graduate from Howard Law, stood shackled, his wrist bruised from hours of tight metal clinks. The same room where he'd once argued landmark civil rights cases now felt like the belly of a beast about to consume him whole. Judge Alton Greaves sat high on the bench, his gaze cold, chin lifted with the arrogance of a man convinced of his own untouchable power. His gavel wasn't just wood, it was a scepter, and he wielded it with the smug assurance of someone who knew that the world beneath him bent when he said bend. Marcus locked eyes with the man who had once clapped for him when he was sworn into the bar. Now that same man was sentencing him to 12 years for crimes he never committed. Mr. Thorne, you of all people should have known better. This court is deeply disappointed. Deeply disappointed? Marcus wanted to laugh, but he held it in. He didn't flinch, because if there was one thing left he could control, it was how he went down. The courtroom doors closed behind him with a metallic clang. 6 years earlier, Marcus had begun to suspect something dark brewing beneath the surface of Baltimore's federal judiciary. A client of his, Jose Lito Ramirez, a low-level drug runner, had whispered to him, "Man, your judge is in on it." At first, Marcus dismissed it as desperation. But Lito had receipts, cash transactions, burner phone screenshots, even a surveillance clip from a warehouse near the docks. The man in the footage? Judge Alton Greaves, meeting a known cartel enforcer, smiling, shaking hands, the kind of handshake that meant two people were now bound by the same bloody pact. Marcus didn't know what scared him more, how high the corruption went, or how casually Greaves moved through it. He made a calculated decision. He reached out to a federal prosecutor he'd once clerked with, Dana Rowe. She was clean. At least she had been. But when he mentioned Greaves, her tone changed. Flat, cold. She ended the call with a warning. "If I were you, Marcus, I'd drop this." He didn't do that. 3 weeks later, he found himself accused of witness tampering in an ongoing racketeering case. The evidence was planted, too precise to be sloppy, too perfect to be real. His name was dragged through the mud. Bar complaint, FBI raid, false texts, doctored wiretaps. At trial, Greaves presided, of course. Marcus fought, with logic, with facts, but none of it mattered. The machine was already set in motion. He watched as jurors were nudged, evidence reshaped, and doubt slowly strangled out of the room. His own words echoed against him. The defendant used his legal skills to manipulate the justice system. That's what Greaves said to the press the day after sentencing. Marcus served 6 years, not because he was guilty, but because he was right. Prison had its own rhythm. Cold mornings, countless push-ups, and silence. But Marcus didn't waste his time. He studied, he listened, he watched. There were whispers in the prison yard about a judge who laundered drug money through construction companies and religious nonprofits. Marcus cataloged every name, every date. Inmates who had dirt on Greaves suddenly disappeared to other facilities, but Marcus made friends. Friends with long memories and little to lose. By the time he stepped out of the gates, aged, worn, but burning inside, Marcus had a plan. His first stop was the graveyard. His mother had died 2 years into his sentence. She'd stood outside every courthouse protest, worn shirts with his face on them, shouted her lungs dry to anyone who'd listen. Now the silence around her grave was louder than all that. "I'm going to bring him down, Ma, even if it kills me."
He moved underground. No social media, no public appearances, just the ghost of a former attorney crawling back through Baltimore's veins. He reconnected with Gerald "Slick" Knox, a disgraced former private investigator who owed him a favor. Slick had once helped Marcus get a young black boy exonerated from a wrongful life sentence. Slick knew people, Dirty people, but honest in their own corrupt way. "I thought you were done with all this," Slick said when Marcus showed up at his broken-down apartment. "I'll be done when he's behind bars." The operation began in shadows. They wiretapped the judge's associates, not the official ones, but the ones who lived in mansions too fancy for their stated incomes. Marcus posed as a reformed ex-convict looking to invest dirty money in construction fronts. He infiltrated one of the shell companies laundering cartel funds. He didn't just want evidence. He wanted the right kind, the kind that burned bridges and left no exit routes. They traced back money orders to offshore accounts. They found a luxury yacht in the Cayman Islands owned by J.A. Greaves Enterprises. They even uncovered surveillance footage of a drop at a local megachurch's back parking lot. Bit by bit, the web unraveled. But what Marcus didn't know, Greaves had already caught wind. One night, as Marcus sat in an abandoned warehouse reviewing surveillance tapes, headlights pierced the darkness. A car door slammed. Footsteps echoed. He reached for the pistol Slick had insisted he keep. Greaves walked in, alone, calm, wearing a long wool coat, hands gloved. "I knew you'd come back," he said, voice low and steady. "Black men with ambition always do." Marcus didn't speak. "You could have stayed down, Marcus. You could have gotten your license back, faded into a quiet life. But no, you had to chase ghosts." "Ah, you framed me. You took 6 years from me. You tried to bring me down first. That was your mistake." "Not a mistake, just premature." Greaves chuckled. "You're too late. The system protects its own. Not when the system becomes the evidence." Marcus pressed play. The screen lit up with Greaves meeting a known drug boss, voice clear, hands exchanging bags. Greaves stared at the footage for a long beat. Then his face changed. "You recorded this?" "And 20 others. Deposits, calls, transfers. You'll be on every national channel by Friday." A flicker of fear passed Greaves' eyes. Then he reached into his coat. Marcus lifted the gun. "Don't." Greaves paused. "I could end this right now," the judge muttered. "One less problem." Marcus lowered his voice, cool as steel. "Try it. I don't mind dying if I take you with me." Seconds passed. Then Greaves lowered his man. "You don't have the power you think you do." "No, but the truth does." By dawn, Marcus had already sent copies of the evidence to 5 journalists, 2 U.S. attorneys, and a congressman whose career was built on anti-corruption. The media explosion was nuclear. The justice deceiver, one paper called it. Black judge, white powder, another screamed. The DOJ launched an inquiry. Greaves' home was raided, his offshore accounts frozen, his associates subpoenaed. But Marcus wasn't done yet. He filed a civil suit, not for money, but for his name, for the record, for every mother who'd ever watched her son walk into a courtroom and come out broken. The trial wasn't just a legal proceeding, it was a reckoning. The courthouse steps were packed. Reporters shoved mics into every open space. Protesters held signs with Marcus Thorne's name painted in bold, defiant strokes. But Marcus didn't enter with a fist raised. He entered with silence, tailored in a black suit, sharp as a razor's edge, flanked by attorneys who'd once doubted him, now hand-picked from the nation's top civil rights firms.
Judge Alton Greaves, meanwhile, sat behind bulletproof glass in a separate holding area, denied bail, denied dignity. His once immaculate hair grayed overnight. The confidence that once defined him had evaporated, replaced by something Marcus could only describe as hollow. Prosecutors detailed a web of corruption that read like fiction. Greaves had been the linchpin of a criminal empire that spanned state lines, funneling cartel money through fake charities, rigging trials to protect traffickers, and burying clean voices like Marcus to keep himself safe. Marcus took the stand. The courtroom held its breath. He told his story without theatrics, no tears, just truth. I wasn't sentenced because I broke the law. I was sentenced because I found someone who did. He glanced across the room. Cameras caught the moment, and for the first time in his life, Judge Greaves looked away. Outside, the streets echoed with a name once tarnished. Marcus! 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 The same city that let him rot in a cell now stood up for him. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. The judge was going down, but Marcus wasn't there for the applause. He was there for justice, the real kind, the kind carved in sweat and scars. 3 months later, a federal jury convicted Greaves on 17 counts: racketeering, bribery, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to distribute narcotics, and perjury. He was sentenced to life without parole. The sentence was poetic, but Marcus didn't feel satisfaction, only silence. Slick threw a party. His friends drank to "The Fall of the Mighty," but Marcus slipped out early, walking through the Baltimore night alone, where the air was thick with summer heat and the kind of quiet only the wrongfully accused ever really understood. Days became weeks. Offers poured in. TV interviews, book deals, political campaigns. He turned them all down. Instead, he opened the Thorn Initiative, a nonprofit dedicated to fighting wrongful convictions and exposing judicial corruption. His first client, a man convicted by a circuit judge with ties to one of Greaves' old business partners. The system was wide and dirty, but now Marcus had a weapon sharper than any gun, the truth, and people were finally listening. One autumn morning, Marcus visited a high school in West Baltimore. The principal introduced him to a group of young black students. "They say you beat the system," one kid said, barely 16. Marcus shook his head. "No," he said, "I exposed it. The beating part's up to you." Another asked, "Didn't you want revenge?" He paused. "At first, yeah, but revenge is loud and fast. Justice is quiet and permanent." Months later, as the dust of the trial faded, a letter arrived at Marcus's office. No return address, just a thick envelope marked "Confidential." Inside was a photo of Judge Greaves in prison, face pale, eyes sunken. Handwritten on the back, "You took everything from me, but you gave it to everyone else. Congrats." No name, just ink and regret. Marcus tossed it into the drawer. He didn't need Greaves' acknowledgement. The world knew now. Years passed. The Thorn Initiative expanded nationwide, uncovering corruption in courthouses from Detroit to Dallas. Marcus testified before Congress. He guest lectured at Yale, but he always returned to Baltimore because the soil that tried to bury him became the ground he rebuilt from. He visited his mother's grave every Sunday. "I did it, and I'm still not done," he would whisper. One night, after speaking at a university, a student approached him. "How did you survive it all?" she asked. Marcus looked out at the city skyline, lights flickering like broken promises and second chances. "I stopped trying to win their game and built my own," he said. The story of Marcus Thorn didn't end with a gavel. It began with one. Because justice isn't what the system says it is. Sometimes justice wears chains before it wears a robe. And sometimes it takes losing everything to remind the world what one man, with truth and nothing left to lose, can really do.